Bonjour et bienvenue. Welcome to episode 12 of Across the Channel, the French football podcast that has the flair of PSG, the nous of Pierre Sage's Lens, the audacity of Racinia's young Strasbourg team, and the financial muscle of plucky little Le Havre. Thank you for joining us as we look back at the latest Ligue 1 action and look forward to an exciting week in Europe. Well, after the goals and drama of a remarkable midweek round in France, Ligue 1 was calmer over the weekend. It was a bit of a return to the dark old days. Just 14 goals scored in all, including a late Gonzalo Ramos header that clinched a 1-0 victory for PSG against Nice. The Parisians are 2 points clear at the top, with Marseille second after their 1-0 victory at Auxerre, and Lens level on points with OM courtesy of a 3-0 home win over Lorient. I am delighted to say that Ligue 1 commentator Andy Scott is joining us again this morning. Andy, welcome on board, and would you care to comment on the latest Scottish addition to Ligue 1?
Are you referring to David Weir?
Absolutely, David Weir, the new Strasbourg sporting director. Is this a good move,
Well,
Andy?
I mean, listen, I can't really offer much insight into whether it's a good move because I've not been following his work latterly too closely. He's obviously been involved at Brighton, and there are so many links between Brighton and Strasbourg these days, perhaps indirectly, often through Chelsea. We know that Liam Rosenior, for example, was at Brighton, and many others now involved at Strasbourg were there, so that's the link. But David Weir, for a Scottish football fan growing up in the late 90s, was obviously a stalwart defender who had a tremendous career, who played for Hearts, he played for Rangers, he played for Everton, and he was a great player for Scotland at what wasn't a fantastic time for the Scottish national team. So if that can somehow translate into his work with Strasbourg, I'm not sure, but he's certainly got a great career behind him.
Yes, indeed. And looking at photos of him, he's making me look a little bit old, because I do remember David Weir being a stubborn and very consistent centre-half during his playing days. Alongside Andy, this morning making his across-the-channel debut, I'm very pleased to say that the renowned French commentator Julien Brun joins us this morning. Comment ça va, Julien?
Ça va super. Really pleased to meet you and to meet all your huge community of French football lovers.
It's an ever-growing community, and we're very very grateful to have them. I've been trying to think of an Anglo-Saxon equivalent of Julien. He's a very well-established commentator here in France, working notably for TF1. He was the number one Ligue 1 voice for DAZN, and then he was on Amazon before that. So I was kind of wanting to go with Martin Tyler of Sky, but Julien, you don't quite have Martin's experience yet. So maybe Peter Drury or John Champion. Would that be good?
It would be maybe too much for me at this time, so I thank you. I hope one day I can be compared to 1/10 of Martin Tyler.
Okay, well, probably your English is better than Martin Tyler's French, so you're doing well to turn up on this podcast. Before we get stuck into the action, I'd like to remind you that the success of our podcast relies on you, the listeners. We need you to click on like, which is that little thumbs up button on the podcast platform, and subscribe to us as well, whether that be on Spotify, Apple, or any other platform, or indeed on YouTube, where you can see lots of great clips as well as our podcast. I want to start this pod by looking back at two teams that we haven't actually covered very much of late. Andy, you were commentating at the Stade Louis II, Monaco 0, Paris FC 1, Moses Simon with the only goal. Monaco's first defeat under their new coach, Sebastian Pocanoli, and it was something of a surprise, wasn't it, Andy, after they put 5 goals past Nantes just 3 days previously?
Yeah, I mean, I was in Nantes on Wednesday for what was a tremendous game, probably one of the best Ligue 1 games I've ever been at or had the pleasure to commentate. To be honest, it was so entertaining from both teams. And then being there on Saturday, it felt a bit like Monaco had used up all their inspiration, all their goals for the week. They were really, really poor, and it's hard to explain the difference in the space of 4 days between one performance and the other. I think one thing that was quite striking against Paris FC was that they took off their best player after an hour, Magnus Akliush, and it was as though It was as though they'd planned that substitution in advance and they weren't really taking into account the circumstances of the game. When they took him off, they had nothing. They've got lots of good attacking players, but they didn't look like scoring a goal after Akliouche came off. And just a stark contrast with the game on Wednesday, Monaco are a team this season who we've become accustomed to seeing score goals, have lots of problems defensively, injury problems in midfield, but they've been reliable enough when it's come to putting the ball in the net, even though their two main centre-forwards, Mika Biret and Folarin Balogun, have not been scoring goals. The guys around them have been. Saturday was just so flat, really, really poor. So I went from one game in Nantes, which is one of the best Ligue 1 games I've ever been at, to the game against Paris FC, which was one of the worst Ligue 1 games I've ever seen.
But isn't it the story of Monaco this year's? I mean, ups and downs in a single week, in a single season, and it's not just about the coach. They changed the coach, saying that it would change things. But
I think so. And I think this has been a problem for them for some time. They've been so inconsistent for years now. They usually do enough to finish in the top three and qualify for the Champions League. They've done that often enough in recent years. But you always think they could do better. You know, last year they looked like the team who might be able to challenge Paris Saint-Germain the closest for the league title, and they just fell away. And, you know, the same thing may happen again this year. Having said that, they've been very strong at home. This was their first home league defeat in 2025. Their first home league defeat against a team that wasn't PSG in exactly 1 year. So they have been very strong at home. They do tend to get results. This was a shock result and hopefully just a blip for them. But I can't stress enough, they were so disappointing at the weekend, so disappointing.
But Julien, you're right. This does seem to happen, that Monaco can be in a good run of form. They're looking like title contenders. That was the case last year at about this stage. And then suddenly, this no-show, this performance where they just don't turn up. Now, you know the context of Monaco. You've had the pleasure, like Andy and myself, of spending a bit of time in the Principality. It's a nice place to wind down. But do you think that context can sort of count against them sometimes? Because they don't have the pressure of playing in Marseille or even in Paris, where, you know, you have that on you all the time. You're being reminded you've got to win on Saturday. This is big. This is important. In Monaco, you can almost forget that you're playing high stakes, high level football.
That's the least you can say, and we can see that also in the Champions League. The game in Bruges they had was so terrible. I mean, when you're in Paris or Marseille, you can lose a game, you can be bad sometimes, but you cannot be that bad. Or you know that your week will be really difficult. If you're a player and you're going to the grocery shop or wherever, or to the supermarket, you know that everybody will tell you have to make better things. And in Monaco, that's the main problem. You have such a quiet life that sometimes when you have a bunch of players that are not really motivated by themselves, it's hard to get them motivated. One good point in the recent weeks was the fact that Paul Pogba may come into the field in the next few days, which will not be the case, and that's not a big surprise for both of you, I suppose. But I mean, when they want to make new things like the new coach or the new Pogba or the new whatever, it seems really complicated to have immediate consequences about these new things. So I don't know what the answer might be for Monaco, but for sure they have to change things. If they make such bad games, just as they did in Bruges or against Paris FC, it means they can't be reliable on a season long, and it's hard to imagine them fighting for the title and even fighting for the Champions League when you see the way the other teams involved in this part of the league are evolving themselves.
Yeah, they've got a couple of draws against Man City and against Tottenham, but of course they lost 5-1, didn't they, to Bruges, and that also maybe sums Monaco up in that they can raise their game playing the bigger teams. And with all due respect to Bruges, they shouldn't be losing 5-1. So maybe we fear the worst for them going to Bodo Glimt in the Champions League this week, and you know they need to win that. But Julien, if we talk a bit about Paris FC, I commentated their game in midweek where I found them for the first hour really average. I was really disappointed. They were 3-0 down against Lyon, and it looked as though Lyon were absolutely cruising to a good win. But Lyon, I think, contributed to their own downfall. But credit to Paris FC, they came back, they put pressure on, they got a 3-3 draw, and now a 1-0 win at Monaco. And it means after a bit of a dip, they're up and running. They're comfortable in mid-table, and they're looking like a Ligue 1 side. And I think that is maybe the most sort of important thing, given that they haven't been in Ligue 1 for more than 4 decades.
Yeah, but it's not an average Ligue 2 team that comes to Ligue 1 when you see all the investment they had. I don't know if all your viewers and subscribers know, but there is the Pinot family behind them, which means a lot of money. There is the Red Bull group as well. And you can see that this summer things changed in the club, with new players coming. You talked about Moses Simon, who came for a bunch of money, Pierre Lesmelou coming from Brest and who played Champions League the year before. But you can see that lots of things are changing right now. They changed the stadium, which is a good point, because the former stadium was really hard for a professional football team. And you can see that the sports director has been changed. The coach is still there, but we know he's under Red Bull pressure. So Paris FC is really a very interesting project to follow. It's not the most notorious club in Paris, of course, as you can imagine, but in the same time, it's a project that is made to be built in a few years. And what they are doing with the money of the Arnaud family, the Arnaud family.
Yeah, the Arnaud family. Yeah, you said Pinot earlier, but I know you were getting
Pinot
your millionaires mixed up.
The money of the Arnaud family and the knowledge of Red Bull means the project is quite important and might be quite big. And the fact that the results are coming, even if the project is not over, and it's far from being over, the fact that the results are coming right now means that they can work on the future mercatos, transfer markets and so on. So that's quite interesting, and they have several players that are really interesting, just as Ilan Kebal. We knew he could become a good Ligue 1 player, but what we see from him since a few weeks is really, really impressive, and means that they made the right choices the last few months and last few years as well.
Do you think they need a big name signing, or do you think it's fine? Like, they're clearly bringing in some good Ligue 1 players. Pierre Lesmelou, perhaps the best example. He's been one of the better players in Ligue 1 in the last 2 or 3 years. He's important in the midfield. Moses Simon, we saw doing well. So it seems like they're buying intelligently, but to get people sort of flooding to the Stade Jean-Bouin, I'm not saying they need to buy Ibrahimovic, but do they need a bigger name?
Maybe not now. Maybe in the next few years, if they want to play the Champions League and so on. But at the moment, the stadium is full each time they are playing at home. The prices, the tickets are quite cheap, and really cheaper than Parc des Princes, just next to their stadium. But I'm not sure they really need a big star right now. They need to establish themselves as a credible Ligue 1 team. But I'm sure if they become a regular Ligue 1 team for 1 or 2 years, they will have the will to become a bigger club. But maybe they think about infrastructures before they think about having a team made of stars. The stadium is quite good, but they are having this stadium with another team, a rugby team, which is quite complicated. We'll see the stadium. Maybe they will get the Parc des Princes if Paris SG is moving to another stadium. So I think they still have to know many things outside the field before they will invest lots of money on the field, I think.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and I think the next few years are going to be absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
You mentioned the possibility of PSG moving stadiums. At the moment, the Stade Jean-Bouin and the Parc des Princes are literally adjacent. Like, you just cross the road to go from one to the next. And we've got the derby, but they're keeping us waiting. It's at the start of January, I believe, the first PSG Paris FC derby. Now, Andy Scott, who is usually very talkative, is having one or two connection issues, which is why
really?
He certainly is, but we're hoping to have him back on. In the meantime, Julien, I'm going to go back to you for our top and our flop. Now, this is a regular feature that we have. I ask my guests who their top is, who their flop is from the weekend. So, Julien, it's time for your top and flop from round 11.
So my top will be almost obvious choice, Ayoub Bouhaddi. He's such a talented and gifted young man. He's 18-year-old only, and he has already shined on the European scene last season with Lille versus Real Madrid and so on. But the hardest thing when you're 17, 18 is not to come into the first team, but to stay in the first team. And being able to be in the starting 11 of Lille regularly now for him at the age of 18, and the way he behaves, the way he changes games just like he did this weekend is really amazing. I don't say unbelievable. We know that there are some young players that are able to do that, but he's one of the few. And the good thing is he's so clever as well. When you're discussing with him, he's not just a very good and very promising talent, but he's also a very, very clever and smart young person. So Bouhaddi is my top, and the flop. Ooh.
Well, hang on. Before your flop, just bring in Andy, because I know you commentated Lille against Angers. Bouhaddi, a very, very good player, and as Julien says, very bright. I think he got his baccalaureate sort of ahead of time as well. He wouldn't have trouble getting connected onto a podcast. But Andy, I know you've been having issues that are out of your scope, of course. But what did you make of him against
some issues? Yeah, listen, he was very good. I mean, he set up the goal right for Felix Correa. Lovely player and bright kid, as Julien says, and he played very well. I think what's interesting about the Lille team actually is that they've got a lot of old guys in that team. You know, you look at the team that played yesterday. They had Thomas Meunier, who's 34. Benjamin Andre, 35, Aïssa Mandi, 34, Olivier Giroud, who's 39. That's quite unusual in Ligue 1 to have so many players. It's quite unusual in any team in any of the leading leagues to have so many elderly players playing for them. And Ayoub Bouhaddi playing alongside Benjamin Andre in the midfield is about half his age. You know, and as Julien referred to the game against Real Madrid last year, that was on his 17th birthday, and he's only just 18 now. And he plays with such maturity. And I was thinking this, and I made a reference to this yesterday during the game, that he is going to have a wonderful career. I think he was already, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was nominated for the Copa Trophy, right? The trophy awarded at the Ballon d'Or ceremony for the best player aged under 21, which Lamine Yamal won. Yeah. I think Ayoub Bouhaddi was among the final nominees in that, and you know it's a trophy that a player like him might not win because he's a central midfielder. He might not be a guy who's going to bang in the goals or set up too many goals in a spectacular fashion, but I think he's going to have a marvellous career, and Lille may well sell him after this season for an awful lot of money to one of the big clubs somewhere around the world.
Yeah, but he'll learn the lesson from Lenny Yoro not to sign for Manchester United as a teenager. Although United are doing a bit better, so I'll stop being mean about Manchester United. Julien, let's move on to your flop.
That's a terrible flop on different for different reasons. It's a whole game. My flop is a game in the entirety of it. It's Toulouse versus Le Havre. First, because it was an awful game, 0-0, as you can imagine, and really the kind of 0-0 that you really dislike. And the other thing is there has been a quite impressive argument between Le Havre and Toulouse players and staff. Because to resume, Denham, the Toulouse player, he had an argument with Ebonog, Le Havre player, and after a few seconds of argument, he had a terrible gesture, meaning that Ebonog was stinking, and whether it's racist or not, I mean it's
because Didier Digard has said it's racist.
The Le Havre coach said it was racist and obviously racist, and he was booked for that because he felt really nervous at this moment. The Toulouse staff said Dunham is not racist. We have 16 different nationalities in our team and so on. The problem is, I don't know if the gesture was racist or not. I mean, if he deliberately wanted to make a racist gesture or not. But in 2025, it's quite obvious that you can't make that kind of gesture in public places and public area. And the fact that he did that not only means that it's not really nice from one person to another, but it makes things become really hard to follow, and we don't need that kind of problems in the country. I suppose it's the same in Great Britain or United Kingdom or wherever. But I mean, okay, you can forget some things and some parts of your behavior when you're on the field. We can't ask you to be clever 90 minutes of the game, but there are really gestures that, racist or not, you could think that it's not a behavior that you should have. And the game was really bad, but the after game is really bad as well. And you know that on social medias, in each part of the society, everyone is, not everyone, but lots of people are talking about it. And I think we don't need that kind of behavior. And I hope Dunham will make excuses, and I hope this kind of behavior won't be repeated in the few weeks. We don't need that at the moment, I'm sure.
Yeah, Julian, your English is nearly perfect, but yeah, you hope Dunham will apologise, not make it, because if you make excuses,
Okay.
It's like, no, but it's okay. That's a bit of franglais creeping in. But
that was
no.
really French into English, yeah, sorry.
But no, you've explained it really well, and it is a delicate subject. It's an ugly incident, and it reminds us as well of something that happened many years ago between Milan Barros, who made that sort of hand-waving movement in front of his nose in front of Stefan Mbia at the time in a Marseille-Lyon, and that led to a big debate about whether Barros was being racist or not, and it's just something that shouldn't happen.
I'm not saying Dunham is racist for sure. I'm just saying that kind of gesture makes the argument easily possible, and that doesn't make any sense. I mean, he has to apologize for this, not for being racist, but at least for having this gesture, and he should not do that anymore. That's what I meant.
Okay, we're gonna bring a bit more sort of lightheartedness to the podcast now, and I'm just gonna push back the talk about Rennes' match and about PSG's match into the second half. So there's no first half added time. The whistle is about to blow already. Half time then in the podcast. We know it's Paris Saint-Germain against Bayern Munich on Tuesday, and we're going to warm up now with a bit of trivia. I'm going to be testing Andy Scott and Julien Brun, pitting one against the other, Scotland against France. Guys, I'm going to describe a player who plays for PSG or Bayern. I'm going to read out one clue after another. If you think you know the answer, you can shout out. But be careful, because if you're wrong, then you're eliminated and your partner has the chance to answer in his own time. So the question is, who am I? I
know who you are.
Yeah.
No, sorry, I thought you said.
Julien, come on. A little bit of seriousness, please. I've spent time preparing this over my weekend. Who am I? I was born in London. I rose to fame playing for a London club in the Premier League. In the past...
Michael Olise.
Yes, Andy's got it. Wow. You went for it early, but how did you know it wasn't Harry Kane?
Well, you know, Michael Olise has the Ligue 1 connection, which Harry Kane does not yet have. Well, he's got the French connection, which Harry Kane does not yet have.
Yeah, true. Okay, well done. So I'm going to have to raise the bar a bit. Too easy for Andy. Okay, second one. By the way, there are three of these. Second, so it's 1-0 to Andy Scott. Okay. Next one. So which Bayern or PSG player am I? I went to the 2022 World Cup, but I didn't play. In fact, I had to wait until 2023 to make my international debut against Australia. I used to play for a club whose name sounds a little bit like a sausage. I'm not renowned at all for my goal scoring. In fact, I've only scored one goal in my entire club career. And that was against Bayer Leverkusen.
I know that one. Can I say it?
You going for it, Andy?
Yeah, it's William Pacho.
Oh, it's 2-0. It's 2-0 to Andy Scott. Yeah, very good. Very good. Very good. That was a bit better, though, a bit tougher.
I got it off the sausage reference.
Oh, yeah, I got it now.
Saucisse de Francfort, Eintracht Frankfurt, William Pacho. Okay, well done. So consolation chance for Julien Brun, but you're going to have to maybe take a risk or two because Andy is pretty hot this morning. So which Bayern or PSG player am I? I am a Portuguese international.
João Neves.
Oh, Julien, you've gone too early. It's not.
You told me I had to take risks. I did.
That was a big risk. So Julien, you've got at least 3 clues now to get it all on your own. I represented my country at the 2022 World Cup. I have scored just 1 goal for my club side this season. Andy's going to wait this one out. I feel a very strong attachment to the city of Paris.
Nuno Mendes.
No, Julien, you're out.
Oh, I'm out.
It's not Nuno Mendes. And not only because I won the European Championships in the French capital in 2016.
It's Rafael Guerreiro.
Yo! 3-0 to Andy Scott. What a performance from the English Ligue 1 commentator against the French League. Yeah, Rafael Guerreiro, who was born in Paris and plays for Portugal. And therefore, it's him and it's not Nuno Mendes or João Neves. But unlucky, Julien. Hopefully, you'll come back next time and get a point or two.
I'm retiring now.
Okay, just
have everything.
on the subject of quizzes, we had a question for our listeners last week. We asked you to name 5 players who've played for Brest, PSG, and the French national team. I was offering 1 point if you could name 3, 2 points if you named 5, and 3 if you could do better than me and find more than 5. One person did do better than me. George Rodriguez, who named Paul Le Guen, Vincent Guérin, Bernard Lamar, David Ginola, Claude Makelele, and the one I didn't get, Bernard Mendy. 3 points for George Rodriguez. Habib Bar and John Crossan both got 5. They get 2 points each. Pierre Carpentier and Chris Cole named at least 3, so they pick up a point. Special mention as well to John Crossan, who got 2 other players that I didn't spot. Julien, you probably remember these guys. Yvan Leroux and Bernard Pardo.
Oh, yeah. Yvan Leroux is still working at the Brest club, so yeah.
Nice. So 8 players in all, not 5. So a fantastic team effort and well done everyone, especially George Rodriguez, who got 3 points and is clear now at the top of the leaderboard. Now, who am I for our listeners? So here we go. The quiz is changing a bit. I'm making it a who am I. It's not necessarily a PSG or Bayern player, by the way. I left my homeland in 2004, embarking on a European odyssey that would span more than 2 decades. While I did play for 3 years in Belgium, the vast majority of my career has been spent in Germany and in France. Indeed, I played for 2 historic German clubs. Claude Puel was my first Ligue 1 coach. I would say that winning the Champions League is my career highlight, although I did represent my country on 13 occasions. Sadly, back in my homeland, I am mostly remembered for taking part in an historic defeat. Julien has been nodding. You know, do you, Julien?
I suppose so.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
No, I know. But I know the guy.
Okay. Well, if our listeners know, please email us league1podcast@gmail.com. Let's kick off our second half now by talking about PSG 1, Nice 0. It wasn't a brilliant spectacle at the Parc des Princes, but it was an important victory for the Parisians, especially after their draw in midweek at Lorient. Overall, is this a good victory, Andy? Is this a forgettable game? I mean, that's something we're talking about, and I know it's been a bugbear of yours that PSG home matches against lesser teams can be a little bit one-sided, a little bit slow.
Yeah, but the difference being that Nice nearly took a point from the game. I mean, I think from the point of view of the neutral, that's a good thing. You know, it's unmistakably a good thing that PSG, when they play a game at home against a team and that team gets a result or nearly gets a result, you know, that can only be a good thing for French football. Because ultimately, I think if Paris Saint-Germain win a game 5 or 6-0 playing mind-blowingly great football, then that's one thing. But too often games at the Parc des Princes, you have a fairly early goal. It's just not really a contest, but it's kind of too easy for them, and they win maybe 2 or 3-0, and it's just not very entertaining. But I think in this case, if Nice last until the 94th minute, you think they're going to take a point, then you get a dramatic late winner, then there's something to be said for that. I think PSG's league form is, it's a bit unremarkable at the moment, but I've said this on this podcast before, that I suppose it was always inevitable this would be the case after such a long season last year. They might not immediately find their stride in this season. They have dropped points, obviously, in a number of away games in particular. They get a late goal from Gonçalo Ramos, which is kind of his speciality in a way, isn't it? Sort of coming on and popping up with an important goal. The ominous thing for the rest of the league is that they didn't play brilliantly. They have been dropping points recently, and yet they've strengthened their position at the top of the table. So, that's maybe not a great thing. But from the point of view of them playing a league game at home against a team they're expected to beat, I think it's better to see them having to really grind out the win and not find things simple.
But to be fair, Paris couldn't make a really good match because the opponent was really willing to cut all the pleasure of football. It was, I don't say Nice are always playing that way, but it was really a nightmare because I was at the stadium, and during the first half, Nice, they only had maybe 12 or 15% of possession, and they were really on a 15 or 20 meters gap, and they were all together, but only defending. And I suppose that the guys from the PSG who played during the week and who know they will play on Tuesday against Bayern Munich, they didn't want to push too hard, so they had to wait until the end to score. But really, it was a really terrible and horrible match to game.
If you're Francaise, would you have played differently? Would you have come out more if you're Francaise?
No. Of course. I mean, he was almost right because they almost had a point, which doesn't really mean something because at the end of it they lost. But yeah, you can have the opportunity to play against Paris before such a big game, and you know that they are superior to you. So I can understand that you play really defensive, but to be fair, it's also complicated for Paris to develop their game in that way, and it's at some point they really deserve to win that game because they were the only team that wanted to play football. I don't say Francaise didn't have the right to do that. Of course he does. There is not one way to play football, but for the sake of it, I mean, it was a really good thing that Paris finally won. I don't have anything against Nice or for Paris, but that was really not the best game to watch this weekend, and there were not that good games.
nor was Toulouse Le Havre. But Andy, it's obviously 3 points, an important win. But looking ahead to Tuesday and Bayern Munich, they've lost Desiree Doué. There's talk that he'll be out for 8 weeks, and it's a real blow. He was out for 2 months. He's come back and was looking brilliant. I thought when he came on in Brest, he was absolutely sensational. But he's injured again. He had tears in his eyes. Hard for a young man who is right up there among the best players in the world at the moment. And to be honest, they're going to need, or they certainly could have done with Desiree Doué on Tuesday. Fabian Ruiz on his way back from injury. He played a bit at the end. Bayern Munich, by the way, 15 wins in a row going into this one. Harry Kane, I just counted 25 goals he scored for club and country since the start of August.
Yeah, it really is.
It's a formidable challenge, isn't it?
A formidable challenge, and I think that obviously they have the squad to cope with the challenges in Ligue 1. I mean, they are dropping points in Ligue 1, but they're able to grind out the necessary results to be on top of the table, and they'll probably get better over the course of the season, I imagine. In a way, the Champions League, they're completely fine, I mean, this format of the Champions League means that they've had 3 wins out of 3 so far, 3 really great results. I mean, they've hammered Atalanta, they hammered Bayer Leverkusen, and they beat Barcelona away. So they can afford to drop points at home to Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich, you said 50 wins. Bayern have won every single game they've played this season, which is incredible. We're in November and they've won every single game they've played in every competition. It would be a surprise if Bayern came to the Parc des Princes and won. But I think that from a PSG perspective, a draw in this game is not a bad result. And even if they lose it, they're not going to be in a terrible position either. Luis Enrique will know that. Of course, they will want to win the game. They'll want to, turn on the style for their fans. But the wider issue is an important one. Desiree Doué's fitness problems. That's the second fairly serious injury he's had already this season, and they can't really afford to be without him for too long if they're to stand a real chance of retaining the Champions League title. The squad is not really that deep, let's be honest. We've talked before about the fact they didn't make too many signings in the summer. Luis Enrique has his reasons for that, but it really does expose the relative lack of depth when they lose a player like Doué. They may lose one or two others. Ousmane Dembele is still only just coming back. So there are questions to be asked, but I just think the Bayern game in itself, really tough task, because Bayern are, I would say, one of the best 3 or 4 teams in Europe.
I think you're right, Andy, but yeah, I agree as well that the previous format wasn't brilliant either, because, like you say, if it was PSG Bayern, it probably wouldn't be knockout either, and there are too many games and probably not enough jeopardy. I want to bring Julian in. Would you agree with Andy that it would be a surprise? I think, Andy, you said it would be a surprise if Bayern win at the Parc des Princes. Would you go along with that?
Well, it wouldn't be such a big surprise, but of course, Paris losing at home versus anybody can be considered as a surprise since a few months or since last season. But I agree 100% with what Andy said about the fact that this game will be only a prestige or a gala game more than a very important one. And considering the fact that Doué won't be there, I know it's not a good news for Paris, of course, obviously, but in the same time, considering the fact that they played so many games last season and they still have so many games to play this season with Paris and with France for Doué and with all the selections for all the others, I mean, it's not a good thing that the players get injured, but at least they can get some rest while they are injured. They have to work hard to come back and so on, but they can relax in terms also of mentality and of mental health and so on. I think really they played too much and they will have to play too much next summer. So it's hard to say that, and it seems really stupid to say that an injury is a good news, but individually I think it's not that bad. And we can say that even if Paris bench is not that deep, they will have the solutions to keep their first place in the league and to qualify for the next round. So I would say this injury is an individual problem, but it's not a huge problem, and maybe it will be a good news for the rest of the season when everything will count more than it does right now.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to seeing Paris Saint-Germain against Bayern Munich on Tuesday night. Andy, I'm going to bring you in. We're going to talk about Rennes Strasbourg in a moment, but first of all, I would like to hear your tops and flops of the weekend. I know you were piling up the flops because you've always got loads of flops, but you need to find a positive as well. Andrew?
Yeah, so my top I'm going to give to Maxime Lopez. I know we talked earlier about Paris FC and Monaco, and I was at the game in the Principality, and I did say that it wasn't a fantastic game, but all credit to Paris FC for the way they played, and Maxime Lopez was pulling the strings in midfield, wearing the captain's armband for Paris FC, set up the goal as well, which decided the game. And I just think he's a really nice player, a guy who played 150 games for Marseille at the beginning of his career, made his Ligue 1 debut there. You're talking nearly a decade ago now, 2016. He came through and did really well, but ended up moving on to Italy, and then took the step to join Paris FC when they were in the second division before the takeover. But now he's a really important player in that team and running the show at the weekend. And I just think that it was a nice reminder from him that he's still a top class footballer, and really instrumental in what was, I think, the real signature result for Paris FC since they came back up to Ligue 1. So hats off to him. And speaking of hats, Hans Hatterboer of Lyon.
Good link.
Yeah, I mean, it just came to me just like that. It wasn't something that I'd planned, honestly, and pretty awful anyway. But Hans Hatterboer of Lyon, who was, of course, sent off after 7 minutes of the match of the goal fest in Brest last night, the 0-0 draw in Brittany, which in itself could be one of the flops of the weekend. But Hatterboer, who was signed by Lyon one of my favourite French words, which you and I know find very funny. Julien, I hope you find the funny side to it as well. But a joker, signed as a joker outside of the transfer window on loan from Rennes.
He's playing like a joker, to be fair.
Playing like a joker, exactly. Only made his debut, if I'm not mistaken, Matt, in the midweek game against Paris FC off the bench.
He came on, exactly. Lyon were 3-1 up. Paulo Fonseca decided to shut up the shop, put Hatterber on, and they drew 3-3, yeah.
And then he gets a start in Brest yesterday and is sent off after about 7 minutes. And in the end, of course, that means that Lyon getting a draw from that game is a pretty good result. But it's more drop points for them. And Hans Hatterber, therefore, playing his part in an awful lot of drop points for Lyon in the space of a few days. So he is very much my flop. Yeah,
there's been a bit of discussion as well about the red card. And we talked about this earlier in the season, sort of early red cards ruining matches. It was initially a yellow shown to Hatterber. VAR intervened. Studs were showing. Julien, did the referee have no choice? Is this all on Hatterber, or do they need to do more to keep 22 players on the pitch early on?
I think it was really well deserved, this red card. I mean, when you see the foul, the fact that his foot really is on the fibula of the other player. I mean, they didn't have the choice about it. And I think, anyway, laws are laws, and laws of the game are laws of the game. For me, if you need to receive a red card after 1 minute, it's the same as if you receive it at the 60th minute. So, I mean, this foul really deserved a red card. But the most important thing about this game is it has to be forgotten as soon as possible. We lost an entire evening yesterday because of this game.
So I was a bit lucky. I got to commentate Lens 3, Lorient 0. I had 3 goals. I had a missed penalty because this wasn't straightforward, by the way, for Lens. It was 1-0 through Odson Edouard, and then Lorient had a penalty. Mohamed Bomba hit the post, and actually Robin Rissa, the Lens goalkeeper, made a good number of saves before Wesley Saïd and Samson Baidoo added goals. But I just want to say, because you say laws are laws, in this game, Laurent Abegel, who was a little bit like Maxime Lopez, like he's kind of a diminutive midfielder, and he was everywhere. He was really, really good until about the 80th minute or so, where he was obviously a bit fed up, and he went flying in, studs showing on Florian Sotoka, caught Sotoka, and I was like, red card. Like in France, that is every time it's a red card. And the referee gave him a yellow, and I was like, okay, like what does it need to be? And then I was waiting for VAR to intervene, but they obviously didn't consider that it was a clear mistake. So I agree, laws are laws, but then they need to be consistent.
Sure.
Yeah.
He should have been sent off as well.
Yeah, he should have. But let's not go into the refereeing debate. Let's talk about one of the games of the weekend, and it's been one of these stories as well in the last week or so. Habib Beye at Rennes. He was called in for emergency talks with Arnaud Puy and the Rennes hierarchy last Monday. The president decided not to sack him, not yet. Said he's got enough energy to oversee the game on Wednesday. They drew 2-2 in Toulouse, played some okay football. He axed Seko Fofana and Ludovic Blas, saying that those two were not giving 100% in training. He had them on the bench at the weekend. And Andy, as you're still with us, thankfully, this is a huge victory. They won 4-1. Esteban Lepaul scored a hat-trick against a Strasbourg side who are flying high and were hoping to move in on the leaders Paris Saint-Germain. But this shows that they've got quality, which we knew, but also that they're behind Habib Beye. Well, certainly the players on the pitch are behind Habib Beye. And I'm going to ask the question to Julien because I think Andy's gone for good.
I suppose, the players were not against Habib Beye, that's for sure. But you said that Arnaud Puy, the president, decided to keep Habib Beye. I think he decided to sack him first, and then Habib Beye had contacts with the owner over the president. So I think it's things are going well right now in the club because they won, but for sure within the few weeks we will see that maybe there are problems between the owner, the delegate president, and the staffing, the staff and the coach. So I think this 4-1 victory is very good for the moment and for Habib Beye for the few weeks, but he really has to do the same kind of results in the near future. Otherwise, it will be hard again for him. But the other thing is, as you said, Fofana and Blas weren't in the group during the midweek game in Toulouse, and maybe he lost them. And we know they're very important players, and we know that the salary wage that Fofana has means he won't leave this winter, and they will have to keep a good relationship within the few weeks, which is not one as well. So I think it's a very good news for him, it's a very good news for Rennes, and it's obviously a very good news for Le Pôle that they had this game yesterday. But I wouldn't bet on the fact that everything's clear now and nothing will happen in the next few weeks. So it's good, but it's not perfect.
Yes, it does seem to be a bit of a mess behind the scenes. We'll have to see what the future holds for Arnaud Puy, for the coach Habib Beye as well. I want to talk about Esteban Le Pôle. Brilliant hat-trick at the weekend from Le Pôle, who is a proper number 9, a proper striker who just seems to always be in the right place at the right time. He's showing that he can finish as well. And it's hard not to be touched by Esteban Le Pôle's story. He was born in Auxerre in April 2000. His father at the time was playing for Auxerre, Fabrice Le Pôle. He was actually part of the Auxerre squad that won the League and Cup double under Guy Roux back in 1996 when Laurent Blanc was playing for Auxerre, Corentin Martins and Sabri Lamouchi. Sadly, Fabrice had to retire prematurely. He was a very skillful, pacey left winger, but he was involved in a car accident and sustained injuries in 1997. Then even more tragically, Fabrice Le Pôle lost his life in 2020 following another road accident. He died at the age of 43. Esteban Le Pôle was on the books of Lyon's youth side at the time, but he was released by Lyon soon after that. And I think that the courage and the strength that Le Pôle has shown is astonishing. He's worked his way back up to the top, if you like, through the lower leagues, playing for Épinal, playing for Orléans, playing for Angers, and then in the summer he got this 15 million euro move to Rennes. And I can tell you he's doing fantastically well. He's got 7 goals in 9 games. He's been involved in 10 of Rennes' last 12 goals, and it's heartening to see this player who is a great player to watch, but also with his story, to see him enjoying this success.
Yeah, he really deserves what's happening to him. He's like an old number 9. There are not so many number 9 who are playing that way in the French league right now, and it's quite interesting to see that you can play old school type football in a certain way. And as you said, his story makes him really sympathetic. Yesterday night he was a guest of Ligue 1 Plus, the French league channel, and he was talking about the shirts he owns. Don't ask me why. They asked him the question, and he went to his dressing room and he showed his father's jersey, saying that even if he met other players right now, the most important jersey for him is a jersey that his father had when he played Champions League with Auxerre. And I mean, he's just a normal guy having a really different life in terms of family history, of course, and also in terms of football. And he talked about the 2 jerseys, and I think it's quite sums up well what he really is. It was his father's jersey, saying that he always thought about his father when he was playing and so on. And the other jersey he had is Marquinhos' jersey for PSG that he had after a game. And he said, each time I see this jersey, I think about what my life has become since 1 or 2 years and what it couldn't have become if I had stopped believing in myself and so on. So in really different ways, he's a very interesting player to watch, because he plays like, I would say, like not maybe like no other player, but not that many players in the French league, and he has a character and he has a personality that is really different as well. So yeah, I think you are absolutely right to follow what Esteban Le Pôle is doing this season.
Yeah, and it's great to see him doing so well. Like you say, an old-fashioned striker. He's not incredibly fast. He's not big.
No.
but he's got that knack. He's got that Pippo Inzaghi sort of knack where he plays off the shoulder of the last defender, might be offside from time to time, but he'll get in once and he'll punish you. And those 3 goals that he scored against Strasbourg, they were all predatory strikes. And the hat-trick goal where he just smashes it in with his right foot, just top draw.
Yeah, sure. And it's really nice to watch regular and normal people having great stories like that. And there are full of players like that in the French league, but he's not the one that you could see at 16 that he would become such a good player. The fact that he played for Épinal, and you see that careers sometimes are really short stories, because Épinal played against Angers in the French Cup. He had a great game that night, but if this night he had been ill, maybe he wouldn't play for a professional club right now. So it's always interesting to see how small moments can make differences in the whole life and the whole football life. And with Esteban Le Paul, you have a good example of the fact that you can still believe in your dreams, which doesn't mean we will all become football players. You and me, Matt, we won't be. But of course, it's a very interesting type of character to follow.
Yeah, nice moment as well after the game when Le Paul was giving an interview to a journalist, and Leon Rossigna, the Strasbourg manager, walked behind him and basically started strangling him, but in a playful way, as if to say,
he's clever, Rossigna, as well. He knows how to behave with medias. He knows
when the cameras are on him, and yes. even in defeat, Leon Rossigna making friends. Well, that concludes the podcast. Just to let you know the games we haven't mentioned, and by the way, if there are any Mets fans listening, I'm sorry that we haven't given you any more love, because it's been an amazing week for Mets, who hadn't won a single game up until round 10, but they have defeated Lens 2-0 on Wednesday night, thanks to Gauthier Ain, who scored a double, managed to get himself sent off as well for taking his shirt off in celebration and getting a second yellow. And then they managed to win 2-0 against Nantes on Sunday. Abu Ashfali and Abib Diallo with the goal. So they are very much alive and kicking. They're even off the bottom. Auxerre are bottom. Julien, very quickly, we'll look ahead to next weekend. Some big matches, including Marseille at home against Brest. They need to win that. We've got a Monaco Lens as well, a Lyon PSG, or if you fancy bottom of the table scraps, we've got Angers against Auxerre as well. But which game? Is there one there that sort of tickles your fancy?
Of course, the Lyon PSG to finish this 12th journey will be, well, journey means French, but
match day,
Lyon PSG, because they will, all of them will play in the European Cups during the week, and Lyon will have really big struggle to play against PSG, so that's the first time they will really have to fight this season in the French league, and it will be quite interesting.
Yeah, that's tough. Lyon have got Betis on Thursday night, so PSG have got 2 extra days rest. But should be interesting. Strasbourg against Lille as well, a really good one. So I'll pick that because Stade de la Méno, great atmosphere. Strasbourg-Lille. Strasbourg need to bounce back after their defeat by Rennes. A big thank you to Julien Brun, whose internet connection was perfect, whose English was almost perfect. A big thank you to Andrew Scott, who spoke English very well. And thank you so much to all of our listeners. It's been a lot of fun. We'll be back with another edition of Across the Channel next week. Thanks, Julien.
Thanks, Matt.
Merci beaucoup. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.